Welcome back to Issues and Answers. I'm talking with Joseph Kurt, and he is a member of the Charleston Tea Party. And we're having a pretty interesting discussion on the party and Republicans and liberals. And, and we have some good discussion in between breaks, too. You should be here for all of that.
Well, I just managed to get back up off the floor after the knockout there. I think we're good.
I wouldn't do that to you.
Of course not.
You were getting ready to talk to me about the difference between the Tea Party Republican and then the, well, all Republicans, I assume, consider themselves conservative.
Not all, actually. There's a lot of Republican moderates, and that's what the Tea Party is kind of a reaction to. If you look at the McCain-Obama election, right? John McCain made it a big point to say, I will work across the aisle to get things done. I will move across the aisle to get things done. I will work with Democrats. And that sounds really, you know, on paper that sounds good. But there's no principle there. It depends on where you start the argument. If your argument says we need a national health care system and you're saying, well, maybe we need a smaller national health care system, we're not going to support that as conservatives.
Can you put it in a nutshell as to what the Tea Party wants?
Well, the Tea Party wants, the best way to put it is their values. And we want limited government, fiscal responsibility, national sovereignty, state sovereignty, and then that's kind of the encompassing message.
Do you think that the Clinton administration did a good job because there was no indebtedness when he left office?
Actually, that's a misnomer. There was indebtedness when he left, but what happened was the accounting was set up such that public debt was reduced and there was a projected budget surplus. But Clinton still left office with $5 trillion in national debt.
And then President Bush picked it up later on, and it got worse.
And it was added to $5 trillion when he was done, and now we're almost at $15 trillion with this president, with President Obama, after about 2.5 years.
Well, how do you expect President Obama to take care of this indebtedness? When they grew from years and years and years and years of mismanagement by Republican, especially during the Bush administration?
Well, the answer to mismanagement is not to mismanage worse. And if you're saying that, if the argument was, and President Obama said, spending $4 trillion in national deficit is unpatriotic. Those were his words, not mine. And so if spending $4 trillion over what we bring in is unpatriotic, then why would you spend $1.7 trillion in just this year's budget? Because you're already more than a third of the way.
You know, another interesting thing to me, and I'm sure you've thought about this, is there's no way the average person can know all of the facts and figures and information that a president and his staff know.
Yes.
We have to make assertions because we don't really know. As a matter of fact, when a president takes over, they are given information that they never had, that only he is privileged to.
Yes.
Now, but then the rest of us, the Tea Party and the Democrats and the Republicans, sit out here and we make assertions about what we think ought to be right and wrong and what ought to be done, and we don't have half of the story.
But what information, what I'm saying is, given how much information he has and how much, if you're saying, you know, he's privy to information we don't have, then at what point do you say, well, he's privy to all this information and we still haven't turned around as an economy. He's privy to all this information and we still aren't getting results. As far as the Tea Party goes, we have seen results come from limited government. We look at the Reagan administration, and there was 21 million jobs created from 1981 when he took over until 1989 when he left office. We had a boom in the economy from limiting the size of government.
But then we grew government because during the Reagan administration, he was putting people in government jobs.
Right, and he was also spending on the military as well.
And spending on the military.
But a lot of the
argument... So that's what drove their numbers up.
Not as much as you might think. If you're talking about 21 million jobs, I know we didn't add 21 million people to the government rolls, and we didn't add 21 million new military members.
We added close, I'll tell you that.
I don't think it was.
And we didn't have that much outsourcing of jobs. Well, now we're sending people to other parts of the world to work.
Right.
And we're not getting, those jobs are leaving here and going over to Asia and Japan and all those, well, Japan's in Asia, but all those,
geography on Issues and Answers.
But all those other places. Why is big business, in your opinion, sending the jobs to other places and not bringing them home?
Well, if a business is going to look at the value they're going to get for the output, right? We look at, let's say you're building a car and you want to sell a car here in America. The Made in America tag, Chevy, GM, GM, Ford, Chrysler, that sells big with Americans. That's why BMW moved over here. That's why that kind of thing.
Well, half of the parts in the car come from somewhere else.
It's true, but American companies ship them in. American companies distribute them. There's a whole supply chain that goes in with that. And what happens is when a business looks at something and says, I can get better value out of moving this here, then they'll move it there. What we need to do in America is to incentivize them to say the value is better here out of American workers.
They already know that.
They do,
they know that, but they get cheap labor in all of these countries, these poor countries, where these folks are working in these sweatshops, and they're earning $1 a day. Then Americans send those jobs back to this country and charge who knows what for that same product that they had to pay little or nothing for. That's not right.
Well, the notion that they just send it away. A company doesn't just wake up one day and go, I'm going to send all these jobs to China. Walmart made its money on Chinese-made products because it is cheaper. It does ultimately, the end price is smaller.
Right.
But the reason businesses send those jobs overseas is and we have to get away from this notion that it's just simply they can put it in a child's sweatshop and that will make it cheaper. There's a value base. If you're buying a bottle of water and it's 69 cents, you're going to seek the lowest price on that 69-cent bottle of water. So the flip side to shipping that job overseas is now that bottle of water is, 50 cents, 60 cents versus $1.20.
That's right. It's cheaper.
So it is cheaper, but it's not the only reason they ship jobs overseas. And what we need to do in America, we have a 35% corporate tax rate. The businesses don't pay that tax rate. We pay that tax rate. And we need to recognize that the prices that the legislation that we impose on business, the regulations and the taxes we impose on business ultimately come back to the consumer. So we're getting cheaper products, we think, but we're still paying a massive price for them.
I showed my students when I taught at Tech. You told me you were going to Tech a little bit. I showed my students a picture of a map, a world map. And on that map, after a period of, maybe 50, 60 years from that time that I was teaching the course, it showed that there were only going to be 1 or 2, maybe 3 companies left in America because they're all gone overseas and we've done nothing to keep them here. And that broke my heart. And my students were dismayed because they said, how am I going to get work if all those companies are going over there? All right, so that's one issue. Let's get away from that for a minute.
there's more. Yeah, there's more there, but we can go ahead.
Well, if you want to address that, go ahead.
Well, no. All I was going to say is that there's going to be opportunities for those kids in America. There's still small businesses. We are the small business capital of the world. We basically invented the small business, and we can still do that here in America, and manufacturing jobs can be brought back, but you have to look at how much companies are spending to be compliant with regulation, and that's where the conservative argument comes in. Let's make it as easy as possible to start a business here and pursue your own success.
Well, that's what we need to be doing, and
sure.
And also we need to reward our businesses in other ways other than having them having them take advantage of the fact that this country does not charge them much of a tax on their income.
Right.
And
well,
I think
there's a 35% tax on the income. There's still significant
tax
on it.
Well, they're paying almost as much. You know the story about the rich guy and his secretary.
Warren Buffett, yes.
Well, I wasn't going to bring out his name. But the concern there is that why would a billionaire, millionaire make that kind of money and pay so few taxes? And I want you to answer that as soon as we come back from the break. And I also want you to deal with the issue of why some Americans, especially African Americans, see the Tea Party organization as racist.
I'll be happy to talk about that.
Thank you. We'll be right back in a moment.